My girlfriend often tells me that size doesn't matter, and that got me thinking, can I complete Oblivion Remastered with only a rusty Iron Dagger? Yes, it's totally possible to complete Oblivion with only a rusty Iron Dagger. My first video was to complete Oblivion without attacking anything at all, so some ground rules to help. I can't just run past an enemy. Any enemy that I can attack, I will attack. And every time I level up, I must find a bed to sleep. No sticking to low level enemies like in my last video. I randomised my appearance repeatedly, found Aldi's own brand Astarion from Baldur's Gate 3 and named him Jeff. I listened respectfully to my neighbour in the next cell.
And they're a bad name, you see. You're an embarrassment.
Fucking trash on that.
Best if you just disappear.
Patrick Stewart came into my cell and did well despite his age not to slip on the mess I'd just made. The Mythic Dawn are attacking and trying to assassinate the Emperor. So to keep him safe, they sent him through the prisons, where he would have had to walk through the market district, over an open undefended bridge, just to get to the sewers from my cell despite there being multiple entrances to the sewers throughout the city. It's a good thing that the Blades are competent people. Just to make sure this foolproof plan didn't fail, they sent 3 bodyguards to protect him. Now I'm here, it's 4. And very quickly it was 3 again. Until I got my hands on the rustiest of spoons, I couldn't attack anything. So I followed along like a good boy until I was abandoned. Then I knew that a rat would try and taste the sweet treat that is my meat, so I stood to the side and rushed in once he'd calmed down. I found a rusty dagger and the game could begin. Rats died easy, zombies died easy, the goblins went down faster than Piper Perry, and I knew something had to change. I changed the difficulty from very easy to easy. While you sat in awe at my bravery, I recreated scenes from episode 1 of the hit Japanese anime Goblin Slayer. One by one I fucked the goblins, then went back to meet my new sugar daddy. He let me choose my birth sign, and to prove I'm the dominant one, I chose the warrior. While I was choosing my birth sign, Glenroy tried to cockblock me, and Boris told me to hold a torch. I didn't. The Mythic Dawn attacked again, and I struck Boris to let him know who the Alpha is. We carried on, until at last, the amazing plan to keep the Emperor safe by taking him through a market, over an open bridge, then into a building of the realm's most dangerous people, just to get him into the giant rooms designed to channel poo out into the Nibbin Bay, backfired. Daddy Stewart met his end, and as a reward, Boris let me choose my class. He guessed I was an archer despite the fact I'd never touched a bow or arrow so far, and I created my class as shown on screen. I named my class after a 2004 Newgrounds cartoon just to show my age. I miss people. I left the sewers with my new bit of bling and went to the Imperial Market to sell my junk. I bought repair hammers as I'm going to be beating this blade more than Chris Brown beat... I'll let you finish that one. I went to see Joffrey and took full advantage of his kindness by taking everything he had to sell in case I needed more repair hammers. Then I went to Kvatch, time to become a legend in these parts. Once at the gate I noticed that my game seemed a bit choppy. Then my PC fans started getting angry. I was playing on the hottest day of the year so far, a blistering 31 degrees in the northeast of England. I imagine that may be considered a winter cold snap to some people, but unlike in America, our houses are made of brick to keep heat in and wolves out. My point is, if the game seems a bit choppy, it's because my poor ancient PC is dying of heat stroke. I continued through the realm of Oblivion feeling just as hot in real life as my character did in the game. I killed scamps and found the Sigil Keeper. I took his key and spoke to the man in the cage, who told me to get the key I was already holding. I climbed the tower, slaughtering all who got in my way, and claimed my new egg. Once out, we stormed the city, and I asked Sean Bean to the prom. We decided to elope and headed to a chapel. Our plans to marry were interrupted by the Mythic Dawn, who had broken in to steal the Amulet of Kings. I took my poor Sean to Cloud Ruler Temple, where in a pompous ceremony he was wed to Joffrey instead of me. I couldn't watch, so I went to the turrets to look out over the landscape and hide my tears. Once their ceremony was complete, Mr. Bean decided to make small talk before I got us back on track and spoke to Mrs. Bean about where to go from here. Recovering the Amulet of Kings was the priority. I tried to see if I could skip any of the storyline by looking at the grave early, but it didn't work. To drown my sorrows, I went to a bar to have a drink, when Boris told me there was another man up for some fun in the basement. We went in and stabbed each other repeatedly. I took a book from the third wheel and discovered something truly shocking. He was one of the cultists. I took his book, volume 1 of 4, then went to Taormina and got the second book. The third book was in first edition, and the fourth was only attainable via a meeting. Boris and I went to the meeting, and I hid perfectly, undetectable. Boris blew our cover, and I had no choice but to fight side by side with him until he's dead. I killed the last cultist with my little dagger and took the book. I then went to the tomb and waited for the sign. It led me to a cave, but first I needed to level up. So I rented a room in Shaden Hall and leveled up my agility, endurance and personality. Only then was I ready to meet the man behind the plan. I knew that a man would come and take all of my stuff on my way into the cave, so I dropped my dagger on the floor, and once the man took my things, I picked it back up and headed into the gathering. Mankar Cameron was blabbing on about paradise and praising things, so I got impatient and decided to see if I could take him out early. But after one hit, he becomes invincible and just walks away into his little portal. I decided to reload and see if I could pickpocket him to take the amulet back, but the game won't let me. I took the book and slaughtered the cultists. I noticed that a lot of the cultists had fresh produce on their persons. One had a carrot. I won't ask what her plans with that were. One had a pear. One had a carrot and a pear. I continued to butcher my way through the cave, totally in self-defense you understand, and was thrilled to see the wide variety of loot available to me. A silver spoon? Mine. I found a locked chest and needed to know what was inside. It was easy for a man of my talents to break this medium lock. I definitely didn't waste 19 lockpicks on 12 gold and a summoned scamp scroll. I made my way out of the caverns and headed back to see Mrs. Bean. He told me to go and see Mr. Bean now that their honeymoon was over. I gave him the book I had just collected as a wedding present, and then he sent me back to see Mrs. Bean about some spies in Bruma. They meet at a runestone, so I went to pay them a visit. It was an NPC named Yerl. I then went to see Captain Pigeon to tell him about my discovery. I went into the spy's house to find evidence, and then found a second spy by following a cave that leads me out of the city of Bruma. If the Daedra were so clever, they could open an Oblivion gate outside this cave and use it to send Daedra into the city unchallenged. Once the spies were taken out, I headed back to Cloudroller Temple to tell Joffrey the good news. He sent me to see Mr. Bean, who told me to collect a Daedric artifact. I went to the Imperial City to collect some glow dust when I was attacked by the Mythic Dawn without a guard in sight. I found another guard fighting a cultist around the corner when...
It's you, the hero of Kavach.
He said the thing in a new voice. I sold some stuff and bought some glow dust. Then headed to the Shrine of Azura, where, like last time, I brought a wolf into the pack for shits and giggles. Then a will-o-wisp went crazy, and then I woke up here, in Skingrad. Now, you're probably wondering what happened. I tried to clip the scene that unfolded with the will-o-wisp, but noticed some weird noise in the Steam recording. I checked my OBS recording, and then forgot to click record again. It didn't take me too long to notice, but by the time I did, I was here. I decided I couldn't leave this out the video, so I loaded my actual normal playthrough character, knowing I wasn't too far off this point in the main questline. I used him to reenact what happened. My character is level 18, which weirdly made it near impossible to find an Iron Dagger with sufficient rust. I tried, truly I did, but this being a Hollywood reenactment, I didn't think it mattered too much to just use a normal Iron Dagger. I once again brought a wolf into the pack for more shits and giggles, but decided this is Hollywood. The part of the wolf should be played by a bear instead. Then a mountain lion decided she wanted to be a star. I offered my dust to Azura and headed up to the cave again to clear out the vampires. And just like in the real life event, I was infected with AIDS the moment I got through the door. I then went around the cave and cleared out the vampires. They had ebony armor on. In the real life events, they only had iron on. The armored ones were harder to kill, but in the end, they all turned to dust. The difference in loot drops between the two levels is insane. I then travelled back to Azura, who gave me a star, and to see the Count in Skingrad. But no one would talk to me about my disease. AIDS just isn't popular anymore. So here I am. I decided that I needed to just try and complete the main questline before my disease took hold. I travelled back to Cloudroller Temple to give Mr. Bean my shiny star. Mrs. Bean then told me that Bruma was under attack, so I made my way there with my little dagger, but before heading to the gate, I found a beggar's bed to sleep as I'd levelled up. While levelling up, I noticed that Jeff had green eyelids. I levelled up the same as last time and headed out to meet Captain Pigeon. He and his men would come into the gate with me. I went in and Captain Pigeon had a great sword. He's clearly compensating for something. I'm happy with my rusty little knife. My weapon broke and I decided not to repair it. It was doing less damage now and I could still take the scamps fairly easily. The Dremora churls were harder, but with the Bruma guard at my back, we took them out. Climbed the tower and I added a shiny new egg to my collection. One guy made it through the entire hell portal, but then died to the scamps remaining outside. I went back to Cloudroller Temple and was told to get the armour of Tiber Septim, otherwise known as Talos. I went to Sankator, where I had to kill 4 X-Blades and have their ghosts take out the force field that protects said armour. Sankator is full of ghosts, and for anyone who doesn't know, ghosts aren't harmed by normal weapons, only magic and silver weapons, neither of which are a rusty iron dagger. I ran past the ghosts just as I did in my last video and took care of the skeletons. They didn't put up much of a fight, and one by one I fucked them with a small dagger. It's like I've always said, it's not the size that counts, it's the way that you push it into their skulls. I claimed the armour and took it back to Sean Bean. I then needed a great Wickeld stone. If you're wondering what one of them looks like, Sean Bean has one floating here already for convenience. Unfortunately, that one doesn't count for some reason, so I needed to find another one. So I travelled to Gavach to start making my way to another Iliad ruin to find such a stone. Once at Gavach, I settled in for a good night's rest to level up, and when I woke up, I was greeted with a message of a dream. In it, I was Edward Cullen, a vampire. I know this, as I woke up screaming, which means that I may be a vampire, but I'm also a bitch. After this fiasco, I slept again and levelled up and made my way to the ruins. Once there, I killed a goblin that had trapped itself like a stepsister in a washing machine, and then entered the war zone. Zombies and skeletons versus goblins. I charged in like the Knights of the Vale during the Battle of the Bastards. Unlike the Knights of the Vale, I didn't pick sides, and slaughtered everyone and everything. I took the stone and then took on the King of the Hill, and what a king he was. My broken rusty dagger took 4, maybe 5 seconds to win the Iron Throne. I took a few more enemies out, and this little "your weapon is broken" message really got on my nerves. I made my way out with the stone to find Mr. and Mrs. Bean having their first domestic. Then they decided to get me involved. Mr. Bean was being overly friendly with me about the stone I'd gotten him. A stone far bigger than Joffrey could afford on the salary of a blade. He told me we needed a great sigil egg, and to convince the Countess of Bruma to let the mythic Dawn open a great gate outside her walls. I remember this from last time. Neither Emperor nor Countess wanted to attend, so this time I saved in advance and went into the castle to tell the Countess of the good news. I then stalked her slowly all the way there. It worked, and she folded like a paper aeroplane. She just obeyed without any hint of care for her town or people. I swear if I wasn't here, she'd have dropped to her knees by now. I walked with Mr. Bean through the awful applause and then noticed one man not clapping. I pulled out my dagger to assert dominance. At the battlefield, Mr. Bean gave a rousing speech, and the Daedra came at us. One of them wanted the same stepsister action as the goblin earlier, but I was too busy to attend to her. After a bit of fighting, I found a real challenge. One of the Daedra was almost a fair fight against my broken rusty iron dagger. I lost him somewhere in the war zone and went into the Great Gate. Inside, I took on another challenger. When I got to the broken bridge though, a dinosaur thing put up a fight, and then I found the challenger well worth my time. My broken blade wouldn't even leave a scratch. I retreated and realised I would need to fix up my little boy. I reloaded as I couldn't use my repair hammers, and then fixed him up. My blade was so happy to be fixed. Like Thomas the Tank Engine when he gets a new coat of paint. He thanked me, but as Thomas once said, there's nothing like a fight to get you in the mood to fuck. I went into the gate tower, where 2 of the Daedra willingly resigned their posts. I then headed into the big tower. I climbed up, slaughtering all who got in my way, until I came across another Daedra, who I couldn't hurt. I started to wonder if it was a bug in the game, but the egg was in my pocket, so I didn't dwell on it too much. Outside, the remnants of their army was being cleaned up, and yet another Daedra my knife couldn't penetrate showed their face. My guess is that they have so much meat on their bones that I'm losing 3 inches before I even get in, and 3 is all I have to give. I stupidly decided at this point to have a quick arena battle, even though my time was limited by the disease. I quickly won the match before coming back to my senses and making my way to Cloud Ruler Temple. I dropped some loot and repaired my gear, all without noticing the level up symbol. My bad. I entered Paradise, where Catholic came to give me an option. Fight him, or do a task for him. My blade was hungry, so I challenged him to a duel, and he called me an animal. Yeah, well you're a cunt, Catholic. I took the bands of the Chosen from his corpse, and carried on into the generic caves of Paradise. One person decided to stand in my way. I took that as a threat. I continued on until I found a doorway, put on my binds, and entered. I had a good fight with Orth and Ranyu, all while Mankar Cameron shouted propaganda into my head. They paid good money for that voice acting, and they were going to use it whether I wanted to hear it or not. More named Daedra came at me, and I fought on bravely. Eventually, I found Eldermill. You may know him from such films as Siege of Gavach and An Emperor's Death, but I know him from I accidentally told you to follow me, now you die. Somehow, killing someone here in Paradise still gets you noticed by the Dark Brotherhood. Eventually, I found Madrake, an enemy that gave me a lot of trouble in my last video, and he died like a bitch. Even the little dinosaur things are harder than him. I went to check and see if Mehrunes Dagon had a biggin, but he was smooth like a Ken doll. I then went to fuck Mankar Cameron and didn't give him a chance. I ignored his children and closed the gap between us to make his staff useless. I slayed him and knew that all I had to do now was get Mr. Bean to his flat. Sean was declared Emperor, and then the gates of Oblivion came to the Imperial City on their farewell tour. They brought all the stars, including Mehrunes Dagon himself. We battled through the city to get to the front row and see it for ourselves. We got into the Temple of the One, and Mr. Bean turned into a beautiful butterfly. And with that, I completed Oblivion with the trusted rusty Iron Dagger. I noticed that the end map is wrong too. It shows the Imperial Island connected to the mainland. This challenge may have been trickier than the No Killings run, but it was more fun. I also continued this run for a little bit and cured my vampirism. I may release that as a mini extra video as it was quite fun, but also very annoying at the same time. As soon as Mr. Bean died, the sun started to burn my character alive, so if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, dislike, and tell me what a colossal twat you think I am in the comments. Thanks for watching. Stay cynical.